What is up, lover researchers? It's Kevin. Welcome back to another video, and today I got a really special guest, my manager at Uber, my mentor, my friend Paula Desmond, who was a staff researcher at Facebook, Instagram, XUX at Citrix, Dell, got her PhD from the University of Dundee. Yes. Correct. And a former faculty professor at Texas Tech University and also Southwestern University. So tons of experience. Really excited to have her here. Paula, welcome.
Thank you.
So tell me what your background was.
Yeah. So I had a bit of a different route, if you will, or journey into user research, coming from, a faculty background, academic background, I should say, where I was a tenured faculty member, and decided to leave academia and make the jump into the tech industry. And what spurred that move was really, I loved the academic environment, still do, but I really felt I wanted to see my research impact people at scale. For example, having worked at Instagram, having impact on a product that reaches millions of people is an incredible opportunity. And so that was a big reason for me wanting to get into the tech industry. But also another reason I would say is seeing my work impact people quickly. So the academic environment really trains you to move slowly, if you will.
And methodically.
And rightly so. That's one of its hallmarks, if you will, that I respect, enormously. In the tech world, we're obviously moving very fast. It's a different pace, and it's a different mindset in many ways. So, that's what really made me jump into the tech industry.
Absolutely. That's the reason I also moved to tech as well, to see it more fast pace, reach more people with the impact and the work.
It's very challenging. Having worked at Uber, we've worked together, Uber Freight, and trying to understand, for example, the daily lives of people who are moving freight, carriers. Very complicated research questions, problems and challenges that we're trying to solve. So I like that we're having to really demonstrate rigorous methodological knowledge and approaches to solving these problems, but obviously coming back to the business quickly, with answers.
So Paula, you're an amazing manager and mentor.
Thank you.
How do you think being a user researcher sets you up for being a good manager?
That's a great question. I think there are many qualities that user researchers have to our advantage that can make us good managers. I think first and foremost for me, the one quality that I think is critical is empathy.
Empathy?
Yeah, absolutely. As user researchers, we should be empathetic towards our stakeholders and our users. Having that quality should also, when one is a manager, be there for our teammates, our stakeholders too, seeing different points of view, being very, open-minded to your teammates in terms of any struggles that they might have, the support that they need. And so empathy is crucial. And also as a manager, to collaborate with different teams within the organization is very, very important. Seeing opportunities of cross-pollination between different teams is terribly important. Knowing, when collaboration, the timing, the type of collaboration, those things should be front and center of managers' minds.
Right. Yeah. So it's empathy, collaboration, and I think also asking why. Right? In our jobs, we ask why a lot. I guess as a manager, you also want to find out how your reports are doing, and you're asking why and finding the main cause of whatever. Right? Either the success or something that could be improved, you're asking why. Right?
Absolutely. So that comes from us being curious as user researchers.
About people.
Right? About people, period. And that doesn't stop at the user. As a manager, that curiosity should also be there for our teammates, understanding why decisions were made, understanding at the business further up the chain why decisions were made, how they were made. We should be, as I've often said, and you've heard me say this to the team, that we're insight generators. We're the people, user researchers should provide our product teams and the business with insights that serve as a compass for the business. I like to use that analogy of us being a compass. We should help the business navigate the kinds of decisions that they need to make. So we're falling short if we're not doing our job in that respect.
Right.
And as a manager, you're up-leveling collectively those insights to have impact to the business at a broader scale.
And I think another thing that makes, a quality that makes user researchers maybe like a good fit for management is you are out to gather data, and when you get new data that you might not expect, you change your original hypotheses. You're able to be open-minded to that data. I've heard from others, and maybe yourself too, like you as a manager also has to be open to being a better manager, and being open to your reports. Like, how can I be a better manager? Which you ask me for feedback all the time, so which I appreciate, because there are some managers who might not be open to it, or I think that's a great quality to have too, that reports can be comfortable to help provide feedback, and also helping each other grow in our professions.
It's I think too, as researchers, we're trained to be objective with looking at data. We're aware of cognitive biases that we may have, and I feel as a manager, you need to be or should be as objective as possible about your team. That I think is critical, so that you can really assess their performance as objectively as possible.
Absolutely.
So that to me is really important.
And I think also knowing how to give feedback is another one, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone can give feedback. But
what
like we
kind
mentioned
of
before,
feedback?
it's not what you say, it's also how you say it. It's really important. I think there are maybe courses people could take to learn this, like communication styles.
Right. So
Paula, so you've been the manager at Uber. You've also been my manager, which you've been amazing at. What is your experience like being a UX manager?
That's a great question. It's a big responsibility, goes without saying. I've loved and do love being an individual contributor, but there's something special about being a manager. It's challenging, it stretched me personally.
I give her too much trouble. No, I'm just kidding. No.
You're an easy person to manage. No, I think it challenges you in so many ways. For me, I look at it on many levels. First and foremost, for my team, for my teammates, developing people. That's a huge part of what I see as being my responsibility and something I love to do. Seeing people advance in their career, in their skill set, in their knowledge, is extremely fulfilling. Being in a position where you are working with your team to impact the business at scale. You're scaling yourself as a manager. I think that's been a lot of fun for me. I still enjoy having, rolling up my sleeves, so to speak, and diving in, helping with research. But I do love the opportunity to take what I know and being able to work with a team and scale myself to impact the business. And I think that's the awesome part of being a manager too.
I think that's really important. You mentioned some aspects of being a mentor too, and those kind of mesh together. And I found it extremely helpful. Because I've actually never had a mentor for UX before. So I was really appreciative of how much more I could have grown just having a mentor like you. It's so important to have such a good manager who's also a mentor. And I've often seen great managers who are incredibly impactful on the business with their team, but don't mentor or don't know how to mentor. And that to me is a gap. Just being able to, impact the business, but not think about career development for your team is a missed opportunity in my mind. All right. So what do you look for when hiring UX researchers?
First and foremost, strong technical skills, strong methodological skill set. That's prerequisite. Knowing how and when to use methodologies to unpack and answer and solve people problems. That's key. So that's table stakes in many ways. I think in terms of culture add to a team, that's critical. In my mind, when I think about culture add to a team, I think of good collaboration, being very willing to work with your teammates in a way that's supportive, that's jump in, roll up your sleeves, help out another teammate. A collaborative mindset is key. I personally, the things I look for to is, that non-competitive mindset.
Non-competitive mindset.
Right, we're all in this together. We help each other out. We is the mindset that I have for the team as opposed to I. And I look for people that, kind of aspire to that mindset too. I look for also passion. To me, that's very important. Researchers that will really, persevere and go the extra mile to, work on a complex problem. I think that's, extremely important. Being proactive, that's critical to me too. Being a self-starter, independent in, working on projects. That's really important too. And that varies given the level of researcher too. Junior researchers are going to need, more of that mentoring in terms of the day-to-day work. Somebody further along in their career needs a different type of mentoring. And that's another important skill for managers, is to calibrate their style according to a researcher's level, if you will. And so another thing that I really look for in a researcher is kind of a non-hierarchical mindset too. On my team, I very much try to foster a flat kind of team in the sense that I love, obviously, researchers who are further along in their career to, mentor other team members. That's something I would expect them to do. But I don't like a focus on levels, on titles. I try to really inspire team members to not get into that mindset and focus on the work, as opposed to, well, I'm a senior researcher, that's beneath me, I'm not going to do X or Y. So that's something that I think is really important to look for in a researcher too.
I think that's extremely important too. And I like that you have this environment conducive to thinking together as a team, as a collective we, rather than, so-and-so is senior, let me run it by him, or, I think it's good to get feedback and learn from each other.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, rolling up the sleeves and not thinking, this is beneath my work. Let's give it to the junior researcher to do. In my other videos, I also mentioned, I call them badass UX leaders. I don't just say badass UX researcher, because I think the researcher is in a special position to be a leader in whatever position they are, whether it's intern or entry level. You can lead up, because I think that goes into diversity of skills. A senior researcher could have a lot of experience in one area, but maybe the intern or research assistant has a lot of experience in another area, where we can still learn from each other. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely. And I think it is important for any manager to recognize the type of work that is aligned with where a researcher is in their career. So someone that is further along in their career can play to more strategic products research. Having said that, if needed, I would want to see that person still be able to jump in and help out another teammate. That's the kind of culture, personally, that I love to see on a team.
Absolutely. Now, when interviewing candidates, what might raise a yellow flag or red flag for you?
If there is examples where there's been tension between stakeholders and there is a lack of self-insight of where, asking a person, what would you have done differently? And if there is very little thought around, how that person might have resolved that difficult relationship maybe with a stakeholder in a different way, in a more effective way. That kind of self-insight, if there's a lack of self-insight, that's something that I personally look for. Obviously, yellow flags or red flags to me is I wouldn't want to hire an incompetent person. Somebody that hasn't got the research chops that I would look for. But in terms of the soft skills, if you will, being able, conflict resolution, being able to handle that well, being a good collaborator. If there is, little evidence of collaboration with design, that, for example, the person taking credit for all the work and not talking about things in a we mindset, that would be a flag for me. For sure. So obviously the research skills have got to be there, having good self-insight, healthy self-insight, being able to be a good collaborator and making it clear where your contribution was in the work, but also acknowledging other people's contributions and how you worked as a team. That's really important. What kinds of things that you are aware are your blind spots? Again, having self-insight. Things that you want to improve on. I think that's nice to hear, candidates be open and candid about areas that they want to develop. If a candidate sits there and and has little to say about that. That's concerning.
Yeah.
Because we're all developing.
That's true. I know when I was first interviewing, when I was just starting out my career, I hear different things from people saying, talk about your weaknesses, but turn it back into a strength, or don't talk about too many of your weaknesses, because you don't want to seem incompetent.
Right.
How would a candidate know? Like, should they tell you all their weaknesses, or you know,
I think,
does it change your perception of them, like how much that they need to work on?
Yeah. For me, obviously, a big red flag is, giving somebody a scenario, and for example, if they presented themselves as a mixed methods researcher, but they've only run a survey once in their career, I give them then a problem, hypothetical problem, and ask them to think about that. And it's clearly
come out
evident
clearly,
that they're stumbling in thinking through survey research, for example. So I think, presenting yourself authentically, being aware of what you're good at, and being very clear on what you'd like to develop potentially, or things that you haven't done in your career but you would like to do. Yeah, I think that's important. Yeah, just being your authentic self.
Yeah. So the next question I have is, a lot of my viewers are coming from, either they just graduated, master's, PhDs, or even high school. I had a student who just graduated high school who wants to get into UX research, so they're really excited. Good on you. What advice might you have for new graduates, maybe where they might have gaps between schoolwork and actual experience? What advice might you have for them?
Yeah, so I think finding a mentor, going to meetups is a great way to start building your network, seeking out mentors. The more that you can put yourself in those kinds of places to meet people, go to conferences where you meet a lot of practitioners in the field, is a great way. That's how I started out, was really trying to network with people in the tech industry to be able to get that chance to break in. Internships, obviously.
Internships?
Yes. I mean, that's really important. I had an intern when I was working at Facebook who converted to a full-time employee.
Nice.
And, that's, I think, the route that's a great way to break into the industry.
One of the concerns that some of my viewers have is, I might have networked, I went to school, but I don't have any real projects to show. And maybe I'm out of school, so I can't get an internship anymore, which is a problem I also faced when I was trying to transition. I ended up doing my own projects instead, just finding an app on my phone, running usability tests. What advice would you have for 2014 Kevin, who was out of school, didn't really have a big network, but wanted to transition?
Right. We're looking for potential, understanding research problems in terms of how to go about solving them, the process. We're looking for that potential in understanding how to do that.
Right.
The mechanics, if you will, of research, solid methodology, knowledge and skill set. Those are the things that we are looking for. And so I have seen, for example, graduate students come out of social psychology programs and go and work as an intern at different companies, and they're fresh out of their graduate program. They haven't had any tech industry experience, but because they have that solid academic background, which isn't to be underestimated there, they've got the skills.
All right.
Cool.
All right, Paula, thank you for sharing that. I think my viewers will find it really helpful to know what steps to take after school. So now you know. I have a question for you. How did being a professor prepare you to be individual contributor and a UX manager. How did that prepare you?
Cool. Yeah, I think a lot of the skills that you learn in academia translate well to being an IC and being a manager. Things that come to mind for me, when you have graduate students, for example, and you usually have a team. You think of professors with labs. They have a team of graduate students working together. That's a team.
Okay.
That's no different to you managing a team in the tech industry. You're still managing a team. And you're developing people's careers.
Right.
Again,
Yeah, very
similar, translates really well over to the tech industry too. You're mentoring, no difference there. And you're responsible too for the success of that team. Showing impact in your academic work, you're also showing impact of your team in the tech industry. And so there's aspects of that I think translate really well. What also has set me up for working in the tech industry is having a breadth of knowledge of different methodologies, when and how to apply them, working on complex problems, all of those things I feel have set me up well for working in the tech industry. And getting creative with your work too.
Getting creative, yeah.
And that's something that's important too. With tweaking methodologies, just being creative in your work.
Right.
And so I think that those aspects have set me up well for working in the tech industry. Big differences now is pace. Pace of the work is very, very different. So adapting to a faster pace, communicating findings to the business very quickly.
And I think also taking into account the business
Absolutely,
needs, right?
yeah.
Maybe you probably know more than I, but the academia side, maybe you have a set budget for the project that you want to focus on.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to take into account what's the business need.
Right. Right.
And maybe another difference is the number of different stakeholders there are. There are PMs, engineers, designers, writers, data science in the industry. In academia, professor and the students.
Yeah.
And anyone else.
So you're collaborating, with other faculty members, obviously, that come from diverse, backgrounds. And I think that sets you up well to be able to work with stakeholders in the business too, in the tech industry. Having an appreciation for different disciplines, data science, engineering, product managers. I think, you have a good basis for speaking the same language.
All right, Paula, thank you so much for sharing all your experiences and your stories and your awesome body of knowledge. I think the viewers will definitely find value in it, so thank you so much. But I just wanted to kind of get your final thoughts on any advice, any pieces of advice you have for researchers or aspiring badass UX leaders, or what people should look forward to.
So I think getting into the tech industry, I think first and foremost, start networking as early as you can. Those connections with people are going to be key. You do not know when you're going to need them.
Right. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
Some of it is that.
Yeah.
Networking, go to events, go to conferences, start to think about how you can display your skills in some way, like find a project that you want to work on, and show the process of how you solve the problem. Because personally, that's what I want to see. What was the process when we're talking entry-level folks getting into the UX field. Why they want to get into that field is important.
That's one thing that I encourage the badass UX leaders to do is to, when I was trying to transition, I had trouble finding projects or like getting projects to work on. So sometimes you just gotta stop waiting for someone to give it to you.
Absolutely, don't wait.
And just do it.
Take the initiative, persevere, and eventually, you do get your break, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
it only takes one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really does involve putting in the effort, putting in the hard work, and not giving up.
Yeah. Don't give up.
No.
Cool. Those are great words of wisdom, Paul. Thank you so much.
You bet.
For your time.
Hope it was helpful.
Absolutely. So thank you so much.
Thank
Paul.
you.